We will reconvene the meeting. Noting, as we've reconvened after lunch, all councillors and staff present, excluding Councillor Hanson, as who was also missing prior to lunch. 371. Councillor Peoples moves that we receive the report. Seconded. Councillor Plum. Those in favour? 6-0. Paula.
Just extending an invitation to Loud Shirt Day on Friday, 7 o'clock breakfast. Just want to come over. That'll be in front of the council office. And probably just the sale of the bakery, or lease of the bakery.
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Peoples is enacting a previously declared prescribed conflict of interest and is leaving the room. Thank you. The bakery, yes.
Just letting you know that there were 2 interested parties, but none actually came forward and put in an application. So there is a little bit of interest there, but yeah, maybe a little bit more time.
Any questions on the bakery? Can you grab Councillor Peoples and bring him back in, please, Councillor Gleeson? So that we can return to the rest of the report. Well, she is.
People's upset my nose.
I read somewhere else with that under my breath, Councillor Plum. Anyway, we'll talk about that offline. Maybe it wasn't that under my breath, this sort of thing seems to have heard me quite well. Yes, Paul, sorry.
That's all.
That's all? Questions? Specialised bins, I'm assuming they're in the shape of a fox?
Yes, Mr Mayor, they're just a normal bin with a cutout of a dinosaur on them.
Mr Mayor. What's
Please.
the, I probably should know, but what is the Muttaburra Rec Grounds? What's the job there?
Just to install some extra power.
No more questions?
What's for you, Mr Mayor? A new species of bee. Is that like a new or just in the area? Is it something totally new? Is it a native bee?
Yeah, we haven't got a diagnosis of what it actually is yet, if it was a bee or a wasp. It looks like a bee. So yeah, it's a way of getting investigated. So they took a couple of samples.
Philip
Tex
Hayward.
gets all the good jobs, doesn't he?
Philip Hayward.
Tex.
Oh, that's Tex. Yeah, Tex, okay. So he's a bee expert, is he?
He's by security, so he's everything.
Is he? God, look at me, I wouldn't know if it's a new species or not.
He doesn't either, clearly, that's why he sent it away to get it verified.
Paul Ogden is a bit of an expert.
What's that?
Paul Ogden.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the mayor of Wooloo's an expert. Beekeeping.
Okay. No more questions? 372. Should. Just hold for a second. Councillors, you may not be aware because you don't look at the public-facing website. The background material to this resolution was redacted. I raised that should you wish to utilise closed session to discuss the advice that's given there. I am struggling to think of an acceptable regulation. Probably it does deal with the sale of a council asset, so could use the commercialised nature of the conversation, and then go to Councillor Arthur's next question. we would suggest due to the sensitive nature relating to the supporting material that officers have provided and a commercialised nature, we would undertake those conversations in closed session. I'm not putting words in your mouth, councillors, but would that be a suitable course of action? Would officers recommend we go into closed session? Yes. So do I have a resolution? Councillor Arthur moves, Councillor People seconds, and we go into closed session for the purposes of discussing agenda item 372, utilising section 254(3)J of Local Government Regulations 2012, and the summary of that will be the sensitive nature of the supporting material warranting a closed session conversation. Those in favour? 6-0. Do I have a mover? Councillor Gleeson, seconder. Councillor Arthur. Will there be debate? The vote, those in favour? 6-0. 373. Councillors, do I have a mover? Plum, seconder. Gleeson. Councillors, discussion.
What are we on?
373. 22 Sword, Muddaborough.
And that's
Recommendation is that we agree. Two offers were received. Recommendation is for the higher amount of those two tenders. Should you wish to discuss, I'm happy to go into closed session.
no, can I just ask where this block is, please, Paul? Which one's this?
20 and 18 Sword.
Near the, you know where the post office is on the corner? Then if you head,
Sorry, Councillor.
head west,
Yeah.
it's just two blocks up from there. Yeah. Our council house, and then there's a
On
vacant.
the same side of the post office.
Yes, 6 and 6.
Right.
Yeah.
Beside the bananas.
Yep.
Local bananas.
Between the church and the council house, and then I think it backs
Between
onto
the church and the
the,
council house.
backs onto the men's shed.
Right. Next house is banana. Expand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All those in favour? Against? 6-0. 32 Porter. Do I have a mover? Do I have a resolution for any closed session?
Yeah, can I go into closed session, please, Mr. Mayor?
You want me to do all the work again? Section 254(3)J, commercialised basis of the discussion and giving, and the further summary will be given the sensitive tender supporting information which has been included in the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Arthur, those in favour? Carried, 6-0. Okay, resuming open session, Councillor Gleeson, have you got a statement?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I wish to publicly declare the extinguishment of my prior prescribed COI in this matter due to a confusion over my misuse of a personal first-person vernacular to explain a scenario that could arise from the awarding of this open tender process.
Thank you, Councillor Gleeson. Councillor Gleeson has declared what is, in his opinion, extinguishment of a prescribed conflict of interest. It is, as is always, your right to, once there's a declaration made either way on a PC or DCOI, to object or to raise concerns about that councillor's continued involvement, and then if potentially it's required, make a determination. Does any councillor present wish to do so? There being none, councillor, your prior prescribed conflict of interest in this resolution, or in the matter that's referred to in this resolution, is therefore no longer valid, so you may continue to participate in the debate, and you may participate in the debate and the voting of this resolution.
You need to move and second that?
No.
No.
We would only need to move for a second if there was a councillor present who wished to disagree with that assessment. Councillor Peoples, are you moving that?
Can I move that motion, please, Mr Mayor?
Yes. Second up, Councillor Rogers. Debate? None? Those in favour? 6-0. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gleeson, for your perseverance. 375. 4. Is this confidential? Is there even a provision? There's not, is there, to write off bad debts? I don't think we can move into closed session. No. Paula?
So through you, Mr Mayor, we've engaged a debt collection agency, and with that we just pay a fee, and their first response is send all our bad debts a letter of demand, and then after that, if there's no response, then they'll invoice us depending on the nature of the debt and the amount owing. But these three here, there's been no response. They can't find them. If we do want to go to the next step, it'll cost around $400, which these three are minimum. So the debt collectors advise not to pursue the matter due to the low amount.
Councillors, anyone present wish to disagree or raise a concern with the officer's recommendation and the third-party referral agency? Do I have a mover? Councillor Peoples, a seconder. Councillor Plum. Any further formal debate or question?
Not directly to the resolution, Mr Mayor, but do we have anything in place, or do we have the capacity for employees that leave us, that rent? Like, are we legally allowed to garnish separation payments or wages?
Not sure on that one.
I think through you, Mr Mayor, if they sign an agreement, we can get them to sign the form, we can, but if they don't sign the form,
So we have to pay them out and then seek to recover.
Take away any deductions if we have a formal
I
agreement.
believe we'd have to get them to agree at the start of their employment.
Or the start of their renting of property as such.
Sure.
Yeah.
We've had enough, probably is.
No, that's what makes me think. Do we legally have an avenue to have something in place? An easier way to recover debt.
We can investigate that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Those in favour? 6-0. 376. Paula?
Yeah, for some reason this lot in the middle of Marlborough was a term lease. It has been for a long, long time. The previous tenant is now deceased, so Department of Natural Resources is looking to freehold that, and it had a lot of rates owing as well from the tenant, so DNR is just asking to freehold it, and then I'm not sure what their intentions are. Possibly to sell.
Mr Mayor,
Councillor Cleaver.
which block's this one for?
Bunny Beatty's block just down.
His old house block?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So we've got no claim to the outstanding rates anyway, as in we've got no one to claim against. No estate.
No, so, house burnt down. Something's a vacant block.
What's the, is there an historical precedent here? This is for the state to transform or freehold things. Are they doing it to clear this? Is that the intent? What's the
I'm sure,
precedent?
yeah, I think that's all it is, Mr Mayor, yeah. I'm not even sure why it's a term lease on a block in the middle of Munnabara.
Gee, Mr Mayor, I might just give some historical insight, because that was a doctor's residence and a surgery. I'm wondering if that's why it would have been a 10-year of leasehold land. So when we grew up, that was a doctor's surgery and his residence.
Oh, I see nothing to be gained from objecting. I'm just trying to get to the basis of why, but
And we've had other situations like this where we've rated lease blocks and you've got really no comeback to recover that money. It's not attached, the rates aren't attached to the land.
Yeah, to Mr Mayor, I could probably address that one as well. Because growing up in Munnabara, the house that we owned was a housing commission built house. So originally, when you buy those, the land stays as like a lease until such times as things are paid. And I do know historical of one in town here that was like that until some years ago.
Maybe that situation.
all right, councillors, do I have a mover? Rogers, seconder. People. Debate or a contrary suggestion?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, one question. Do we know what the Department of Resources' intention is after it's freehold? Is the intention to transfer it to us, or is it? Look, well,
Sorry for laughing.
I would think it unlikely, but
I would think it highly improbable that they're going to give us a block of land. Yeah, that's right. I think whatever it stays as it is, it's encumbered by our rates, but by freeholding it, that removes that. Same as it extinguishes, for example, in rural land setting, it extinguishes native title once there's freeholding underoccurs. This here removes all encumbrances, probably not only from us even, possibly if there's it could be a minor mortgagee somewhere else. Perhaps, I don't know, you know what I mean? But bank, credit card debt holder, somebody,
Yeah.
whereas by completing the transition of the tenure of the land, it changes then and absolves any hold that any mortgagee, including local government, has over it. So, it's peculiar. I don't recall having seen one of these. They're not common.
I read it several times and it didn't quite
Makes sense.
make sense to me at all, but then I do have a limited experience in local government, at least freehold.
But it'd be a lot easier to sell now.
Well, it can be sold without somebody getting first dibs on the $5,719.01 that we own anyway. All right.
So, Mr Mayor, can I just ask a further question, in relation to going on from what Councillor Arthur has just raised? Do we put something in there that this block then comes to us?
We don't get concerned that we don't own it. They do. What I mean, Councillor, you may respectfully ask, but we can't resolve that it becomes ours because we don't. They own the land. Say the Crown owns the land.
But at the end of, if rates aren't paid for 3 years, how does this go now? At the end of 3 years, if they aren't paid, don't they automatically come to council,
Council can acquire the land, yes,
acquire the land? So,
or sell the land to the purpose of different dates.
right, so that's where I'm going with this. This should come to us at the end of 3 years. I'm just a little bit, now that Councillor Arthur's raised this, I'm a little bit in the dark also, in who's going to own the land. And
I can clear up who's going to own the land for you. If this resolution passes, the land becomes freehold property of the Crown. That's the answer to that, if you pass that resolution.
well, if we don't put that resolution and we leave it until the 3 years comes up, the parcel land comes to us. No?
Because it's not freehold land.
Okay.
The government owns the land.
But we can't acquire leasehold land or sell.
Well, we can.
Why would there be any incentive for a rural? The vast majority of our local government areas leasehold rural land, so why should they pay their rates? No, we have to.
It's a different. I suppose, just reading this, we could, there's $612 owing rent, lease payments.
Well, it says that in the letter. What Councillor Peoples is suggesting is a possibility. The bottom paragraph on page 206. By virtue of receiving this notice under section 235, and should the leasee also have overdue municipal rates and charges, please be aware that you may make application for approval to take possession and sell the lease before the department actions the forfeiture. So it's Council's prerogative to.
We pay the lease, take it over. We're not going to get our rates. Then it's on the land.
We own the block and then can sell the block.
No,
We
don't
could sell
have a lease.
lease
Sell
street,
lease.
Mr Mayor, so we could pay the 615.52 and then attempt to lease it to someone.
I'm not comfortable that we'd have to pay this. I'm not certain that we'd have to pay that. It just says make application for approval to take possession. Remember, local government has first right of call, trumps all others. So we may not even have to pay the 612.
But if we take possession and no one wants it, we'll have to keep paying lease payments.
Consideration.
Councillors, I have a motion from Rogers and Peoples here. Is more information required?
Yeah, I'm happy to withdraw my seconding of the motion for my motion.
Hang on, just let me check when the due date for the response was.
22nd.
Give an extension.
Oh no, 31st of August, sorry, we're already 3 months late. 2 months late, sorry, you have to make a decision today. Let's been sitting here, obviously, with us for some time. We had to actually
It's
place
the second level.
no. The first one.
It's going to be prior to the 22nd of October. Around a suitable time.
Friday.
We can still, if the land is required for required at any time, negotiate.
No point in withdrawing council of people unless you can change because we have to provide advice by Friday.
Mr Mayor, I'm still happy to go with Alex's recommendation.
No, I withdraw, Mr Mayor, because I think we need more information.
Councillor Pickles is no longer seconding the motion. Do I have a seconder for the motion? I'll call again. Do I have a seconder for that motion as is presented? Motion elapses for want of a seconder. Councillors, is there an alternative resolution for the matter represented in 376?
Mr Mayor, can I ask that we ask our officers, our CEO, to ask for an extension here because we're seeking further information on our rights to this block or something along those lines.
Yeah, you make that suggestion, councillor. It just would appear that it's probably our fault this hasn't been acted on. They've already given us an extension of time. The first letter was received on the 4th of August, with a response due by the 31st of August. Clearly, when we didn't do that, they then emailed us asking for that, and they extended the 31st of August to the 22nd of October, so they've granted us a substantial extension. They may acquiesce to that, but should they not, then we forfeit our right to be a part of the decision-making process, because we won't be reconvening council between now and Friday.
No, I understand that, Mr Mayor, but it seems to me like they need a decision from us so they can take further action.
No, if we don't submit by the 22nd of October, it will be assumed that you have no objections or requirements.
We'll tell them we do have an objection at this stage.
So, Mr Mayor, if we're going to object or make a submission, we have to tell them what we want. So, do we want to acquire the land? Do we want freehold? Do we want to take over the lease? What are we asking for?
Well, I'm probably asking for more information on what our possibilities are, but I don't know where you get that from. So, under normal circumstances, and I know this is a lease, but at the end of 3 years with the rates, the block comes back to council.
Can I just ask before we go any further, are the rates in arrears for this parcel of land, they update the 3-year threshold?
Mr Mayor, they're in the 3-year category now. They must have only just rolled over, so they're not in the ones they're actioning at the moment.
Nearly there.
Maybe in the next one.
See, yeah,
And 3 years,
It's for 3 years. 3 years period.
it's not there yet. I'm looking at one that correct. One more way. Something's over there.
lot less than.
Through you, Mr Mayor, is there a value in taking over the lease, or are we just going to pay lease payments for?
I would suggest the value is only if we wish to translate it to transfer it to freehold and then not sell it, as per the previous resolution. When we did exactly that, one of the previous resolutions, we did exactly that, and we're aware of the market value clearly because we've just set it. The process to acquire freehold, continue to pay the lease payments, I'm aware of what that cost would be, but by the time we've cleared native title and undertaken all them steps, we'd pretty quickly eat out $4,000 that we'd recover. Perhaps the suggestion would be that we'd let the state take their process, get the first freehold and ask them to transfer the land into our name. It'd be a discretionary decision, but
Mr Mayor, I just ask out loud exactly where the block is. I thought I knew where it is, but I'm not sure now.
That's the pool. The corner.
councillors, I need some sort of direction here where you want to go.
It's all
Mr.
got
Mayor,
council
what's the
security
CEO?
fence right round it. It's the block that's got the council, it's got council security fence right round it,
No,
behind the swimming pool.
no.
Just over the road from the police station, or to the south of the police station. Police station's on the corner.
Yeah.
Just south of that. And you go down to Kerry and Robbo's.
Mr Mayor, so if we don't do anything, they're saying that they'll forfeit the lease. What does that mean? The existing lease, what happens to it when it's no longer a lease?
It'll become a freehold parcel owned by the state of Queensland.
At the moment, it's leasehold.
It's leasehold land, the lessee is the deceased person, but all leasehold land is actually Crown land, so someone has a permit to hold it via the lease. When they extinguish that, transfer it to freehold, the freehold owner will be the state of Queensland.
Can we do that?
They're already the owner of it, Crown land. Arguably, it's now vacant Crown land.
So they own it, but they lease it. And what they want to do is freehold it.
Which would improve the market value. We've just identified the market value for freehold block to be in that vicinity of what we just, yes, that's right. So whereas leasehold with an ongoing, you've got, with leasehold land, you've got to pay the annual lease value, lease payment as well as rates. So there's a clear distinct advantage in being freehold.
So really what you're saying, if we don't do anything by the 22nd of October or whatever it is, they then just revert it to freehold and take it over. And it becomes
Right.
freehold.
The only difference for us is we have no claim to our 5,700.
But if we write it off, we don't anyway do it.
Correct.
That's no different.
If it was freehold already, we could acquire it for the purposes of selling it, which we could do even being leasehold. But our likelihood of recovering much money with selling a leasehold block of land, as well as having to pay the lease payments on it, substantially, my assessment would be that it'd be lower than if we were to sell it freehold, so we'd probably cost ourselves money in the exercise.
Mr Mayor, it'd be good if the council could try and retain it in some manner.
Yeah, probably, sorry to pick on your grammar, but you mean acquire it because we don't currently own it. Yeah, if you want it to be picked up by us.
Yes. If at all possible. Didn't seem to be that long ago that there was a gentleman living in the house before it burnt down. Now that I know exactly where it is, if the state take it over,
Through you, Mr Mayor, I thought we were trying to get rid of land. We have quite a number of blocks in Muttaburra that are vacant, that we put up for sale, probably 6 or more over the past year. So we don't really need to acquire another one.
With similar services available, water and sewage.
So if we don't do nothing, this just lapses and it goes back to the state.
Sorry to pick on you, councillor, because if we don't do nothing, that means we've got to do something. But if we do nothing, then yes, the state just retains ownership of it, we just lose our claim to the 5,000. That's the only difference.
And we're going to write it off anyway. What is the difference?
Well, we weren't going to write it off because it's only just hit the 3-year mark. We had to make a decision what we did with that. What's the position of the state on the state paying rate on freehold land? They don't pay?
Oh, they don't pay rates. Any land.
And it's up to the leasing to pay it, but the leasing's deceased and there's no estate.
So it's continuing to acquire rates, this property, with no one, there is no one who owns it, but a deceased person is technically the lessee, which they obviously need to tidy up.
Lease has been terminated.
Sorry, the dead letter said that he's still a lessee, but yeah, right.
23rd of September at the end
Okay, well, that was after this letter was dated the 4th of August.
of cancellation.
Mr Mayor, the only thing that I meant by retaining it was there's still a heap of ashes and a heap of rubbish in the corner. If the council could have get the lease of it or something, at least we might be able to clean it up and sell it so that somebody could do something with it.
Well, that's possible if it transitions to state ownership, because whilst they're not going to pay rates, we could certainly put overgrown notice allotments on them. So we could insist that they pay to clean it up instead of us cleaning it up. If that's your concern, it is a state of the block. Once it reverts to ownership, at the moment it's in limbo between ownership. We can't obviously change the deceased person for, unless there's a valid estate for that, but we could certainly make it, the new owner, being the Crown, could be expected to clean it up or pay us to clean it up. And they seem to even do that very quickly. I would imagine they process that. Councillors, I sense a standing orders policy problem here, now that you've just allowed a motion to lapse. I sense that we're coming back around to where you want to actually support that resolution.
Through you, Mr Mayor.
Not necessarily. Some are, councillor people.
Yeah, but I just said I'm not, no.
The letter does say contact prior to 22 October to arrange a suitable timeframe. That may allow us more time. The way I read that is as long as we make contact before Friday to arrange a timetable to provide a response.
That's true, although are we elongating a process? What's our end goal here? What's the best case scenario we can get out of
Three,
this?
Mr. Mayor.
So I'll go councillor Rogers first.
Through you, Mr Mayor, can we make, I prefer to go with the officer's recommendation, but what if we said that we offer no objection to the freehold, but we don't write off an amount, or do we have to?
You can't.
Thank you, Mayor.
Once we allow the forfeiture to occur, we'll have no lawful interest in the land. Councillor Plum, I think you were next. I think you said comments around the fact to try and recover the money.
Yeah.
Not to cost us any more.
Not to cost us, not having further
Right.
costs on it.
Councillor Arthur, then I think you were third.
It would be interesting to know what the department's intention, once it's freehold, is. Is it their intention to sell it, put it out to tender, give it to council, retain it and do nothing with it?
Councillor Gleeson.
Mr Mayor, I'm just looking at the 22nd of October, whether we can inquire exactly what Councillor Arthur said. What's their intentions? We just find out a little bit more about their intentions from.
Councillor Peoples.
Well, in the department's letter, forfeiture occurs, used by ordinary for council to hold no further lawful interest in the land or the improvements situated thereon. So, that just means if we do nothing, they just take over a block of land. Is that my understanding right there?
Well, they take over the block of land and we have no lawful interest, so ability to recover the debt. Which, I don't know how we're going to recover the debt anyway, because
There's no
the person,
ability to recover
there's nothing to recover it from.
So if we do nothing, we just forfeiture occurs and they take over the block.
We can't have, we've got no redress to recover the money, that's right.
So basically, from what Paul has said and how many blocks we've got over there, isn't that probably, you know, if we don't want the block, isn't that probably the way we should go?
Well, that's for you to determine individually,
Yeah.
councillor, yes. I'm personally, I don't see what's to be gained by us acquiring it or objecting to the process and seeking to, as they say, us apply to take possession when then us selling it is going to recover pittance. Unencumbered freehold blocks are bringing $4,000 at Maryborough. An incumbent leasehold block is probably unsaleable, given that freehold blocks are not receiving any interest. That block's probably got no commercial value as it presently stands. Hence, Department of Resources thinking there's a better way to place it in tenure, and then perhaps it may attract some future market value. I guess if someone, as a potential buyer, did a rate search of that, they're going to find an incumbents on there of $5,700. By transferring that to freehold, that's extinguished. So it's an unencumbered block of land that somebody could then make representations by without having to pay the outstanding rates. If somebody acquired that land tomorrow, somebody wanted to pick up the phone and ring the department and say they'd buy that, they'd have to pay us $5,700 on top of whatever they acquired the parcel of land for. Or would it be accurate? Yes. And us taking possession of a piece of leasehold land means we then have to keep paying the lease payments to the state, which I'm relatively adverse to doing, unless we have the capacity to very quickly pinhook it and get $4 or $5 grand for it and cover a portion of our outstanding rates and not have to be owing substantial lease payments for it. Councillor, please.
Mr Mayor, what's the procedure to go back to the original officer's recommendation?
We'll have to suspend our standing orders, then remove the motion, vote on it, and then reinstate the standing orders.
So Mr Mayor, does doing nothing not achieve the same goal?
Correct. We
Well,
just
letting
let
the
the
time-
process run through.
As opposed to going through that procedural?
3 motions instead of just now moving on to item 3.8, although I'm sure the CEO is just about to inform us what the department wants to do. No.
If we do nothing, it just, forfeiture occurs and it goes back to the state.
What's proposed is exactly what happened. What was proposed in the recommendation will occur. So it's the same as,
So, should we put there, Mr Mayor, that, no objection to the yellow block contract, at no cost to council? But the cost is their rates, but you're going to take something from leasehold to freehold, there is a charge on that.
yeah, not to us though, because we don't own it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The state owns it.
The
And
department
I know
will
that,
be-
but you just don't want them to turn around and say, oh, there's a cost.
no, but there's not. There can't be. The Act doesn't, there's no way they can charge us to transform a piece of their own land. That just physically doesn't exist. There's no,
Mechanism for that.
that's right.
Through you, Mr Mayor, can we make a new motion
You can,
about
provided it complies with our standing orders.
It's just leave it.
that council lets the process take its course?
Well, that's in direct contravention of a resolution that just lapsed for want of a second or so, and I would have to rule that resolution out of order without suspending the standing orders. You can do nothing, and that will have the exact same effect as Councillor Arthur suggested. I can't allow you to resolve that. I can't accept that resolution, sorry.
If we do nothing, it just goes back to the state.
Right, which,
Just leave it. But
if we do nothing, the officer's recommendation is followed to the letter.
Right, rates, well,
But we, why do we have to give an objection with the freeholder or not? It's just,
Well, we were afforded the right to object. That's why the officers have brought the recommendation to us to not object, because they see no benefit to council to object.
And, Mr Mayor, every freeholding application in our area comes to us.
We had one earlier in the meeting.
So every leasehold land that's been freehold, we receive a letter from the department, same as this, do you have any objections? Generally, we just say, come back and say no objections. No requirements. So this is the same process, except that there's money owing to us on that land.
So if somebody wants to go and then turn around and buy it, they have to go to
They go to the Department of Resources just as the same as they could go to Mr and Mrs Bartolo and buy the parcel of land that they would like to freehold in the earlier resolution that we offered no objection to. I think the confusing element of this is that the department owns the lease. If somebody transitions something to freehold and acquires something, whether it's the state doing it or a private leasee, as was the case in the earlier resolution, the confusing thing here is the state's doing it and they're asking our objection on their own behalf. They're both the owner, the acquirer, and the facilitator. Very convoluted process, but this is exactly the same as what we did for down the road here 3 hours ago.
Through you, Mr Mayor, so do we need a motion or can we just move on? That there, fine, we just move to the next?
I'm in your hands, councillors. We can just leave this
I'll
lapse.
just leave it, let's move on to the next.
no.
Councillor Plum.
We need to answer the district manager's resolution. And I think that we should revert back to the original resolution.
Councillor Plum, for that to happen, I'll need from you, please, a resolution to suspend standing orders. Because I can't accept a resolution that's in direct contravention of a motion that lapsed for the want of a seconder within the last 3 months. But if I suspend standing orders, then all the rules get thrown out the window and we make our own. My technical problem with what's doing, it's solvable, we just got to get around it. Or we move on and
I can't do that because it was mine that lapsed.
anyone can move to suspend standing orders.
I'd like to move that we suspend standing orders.
Councillor Rogers moves to suspend standing orders at 15:14. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Plum, will there be debate on the suspension of standing orders? Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Against?
4, sorry.
All in favour? The standing orders are officially suspended. 3:15. Now, councillors, what are we doing? Anyone can present a motion?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I would like to go back to the original motion.
The Deputy Mayor is moving that we reinstate the officer's recommendation as our motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Plum, thank you. I'm sure councillors who must sit at home thinking about how you can trick me every meeting with something technical that gets thrown up. While the officer is reinstating the recommendation here, is there debate? I'll call for speakers for. Actually, I'll ask if anyone's going to speak against.
I still don't understand it. Apologies, Minister.
So Councillor Peoples, you're seeking a bit more clarification about what end result is through this process by way of this resolution. Is that it?
Why do we have to write that off for them not to go ahead and do what they want to do anyway? We just,
I see your point. The resolution probably confuses the issue because by not objecting, we are automatically writing off that amount. It's written off because it's unencumbered. But I guess the office, I'm not going to answer. Paula, did you include that as much for information purposes as any real decision making? The amount of outstanding rates?
Well, I need a resolution to write rates off, so anything over $10, I need a resolution from council.
However, by doing it now, it's been done in a tidy process. CEO's advice then was we could delay the decision to write that off to a future meeting. Obviously, the decision then is a moot point. By doing it now, it's part 2 of the resolution. You're seeing the ramifications of part 1 by part 2 being included straight away. Because then, if you delay the decision, you have no choice but to write off. Whereas by doing it now, you're cognizant that you've got a choice to object and do the acquisition as is suggested in the letter, but we've perhaps suggested is not warranted. So I think by officer combining this, it's an eyes wide open decision for council.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yeah, if you delay it, the amount will be bigger. And I did want it to be 2 parts in the resolution, but I couldn't get a space in the formatting of the document. So yeah, I did want like point 1 and point 2, so you knew it was separated.
So by not offering an objection, that then means that the process will go through and we'll have no claim to the money anyway. So then it becomes a theoretical exercise in purely writing the money off because we've got no ability to recover it anyway. We've got no claim to the land, which is the only basis. So yeah, I understand exactly what you've done here now. That doesn't make it any clearer, Councillor Peebles?
but I'm okay. Move on.
Councillor Gleeson?
Mr Mayor, I don't want to drag on any longer, but I just ask one little more question. The lot has recently been transferred back to the department. Who transferred it and how did it get transferred and who signed the document?
What would have been the leasee? The leasee was Mr. Beattie. He deceased, so there's a legal process that I'm winding up with the states where assets are transferred. I'm not sure whether this was handled by a solicitor appointed by him or whether it was handled by the public trustee, but at some point there would have been executors to his estate, whether he was intestate or had a valid will, and the disbursement of assets would have been required. And if there would be a legal framework where no benefactor to receive his title, so someone would have had to filling the role of either an executor or legal, but someone discharging the direction of his will or an intestate estate, which is somebody who dies without a will. That process would have occurred. It's completely removed from council. Thank you. I'm not a lawyer, but I've been through this process, so I'm familiar with it.
Thank you.
I beg your pardon, council.
Yeah, you've got some family.
Well, it states, Mr Mayor, that they issued a notice to the estate. Obviously, there was no response.
Moved here by councillors Rogers and seconded by councillor Plum. I haven't had any formal opposition to this, so I'm not going to put it to debate. I'm now going to put the resolution to the vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. 6-0.
Make some good viewing, won't it?
We need to go back
Yeah, that's
Standing
correct.
orders?
Can I have a resolution, please, that we reinstate standing orders? Councillors Arthur and Gleeson. Those in favour? Carried 6-0. I want to make sure that Councillor Hanson, they know because they're on this afternoon. Can I please have somebody move that we receive Jenny? Councillor Arthur and Councillor Gleeson. Carried 6-0. Jenny?
Probably not a lot there. Did have the opportunity to go out and have a look at the trap setup on the common there with deer. So I did include some photos of what's there. I did receive an email today from the man who monitors it, who's in Maryborough. He said that there were 9 deer in the other day. They're coming in in dribs and drabs, so he monitors it all remotely. So if there's a lot in there, he just pushes a button and all its screens drop down. So it's quite well done. It's on private property, so we have to go to private property. If you go around the back along the block, you can see it.
Thank you, Councillor. Additional advice for that. For seeing that and involving us in that. It's a big issue from a biosecurity point of view, but also just a common maintenance issue that needs to be resolved, perhaps even a town safety concern. So if this is successful, perhaps some learned experience with the district manager of Alpha in clearing a similar problem may be in order. For you. There you go.
They, from time to time, they'll send through photos of what's coming in. I just had to send my email off to a gentleman today, so yeah. And I would just sort of also like to reiterate what Brett said earlier about that rapid relief team. What was held here was very good, and it was really good to see those who attended engaging with those services that were provided there. Some that they may not have been aware of, yeah. And the service providers were very good at what they did, so it was very good. So.
Okay. Questions for Jenny, please? Right.
Sorry, through you, Mr Mayor, without needing to go into too much detail, what were the changes in the position with regard to environmental health?
Mr Mayor, the council, Barcaldine Regional Council, was sharing a environmental health officer with Blackhall and Longreach. He resigned. So, negotiating for a replacement service.
Three 391. Can somebody move Angela's report be received, please? Councillor Gleeson, seconded. Councillor Plum, those in favour, 6-0. Comments? I'd just like to really draw everyone's attention to the closure of Australia Day Awards on the 17th of December. That is critical that we get our submissions in, please, by the 17th of December deadline. Takes a lot of coordinating. We went through a very good hybrid model of the presentations this year and the video. Was distributed, was very well received, but there was a lot more that we could have done if we had the amount of time, extra amount of time afforded to us try to take a few interviews and do a bit with those people and really promote across the council area the work that, including we could have had a video at each presentation of the work or the reasons behind some of our appointees. It's all well and good for us as councillors to read their little bio out, but if we could have a 1 or 2 minute grab from the nominees or from the award recipients to really reinforce, I believe it would really reinforce the significance. But we can't do that when we're closing the noms 7 to 10 days prior to Australia Day, because by the time we get find an assessment panel, get them judged, we're sort of there. So really need to encourage members of the community and undertake your own reconnaissance to ensure those awards are submitted and developed now. You've got 2 months, adequate time. Talk to your school groups, talk to your social groups, your sporting groups. You know, there's some eclectic different groups that have won Community Event of the Year previously, and when the lights shone on what they've done, they're a real beacon to our community. So get out there and grab them and find a couple of people and get them nominated. It's like our garden competition, we've got some fantastic gardeners, we've just got to twist their arms to nominate, because there's some really, a lot of diverse people in our community, and there's a lot we can do to showcase them. So please help us with that. If you're at community group meetings, you know, Gary, in your case, ACDA, or if anyone attends an MCDA meeting, obviously I will if I'm there, tourism meetings, ambulance meetings, school PNCs, football club AGMs, really promote these and use them to thank those people that might have, you know, I'll use a really good example. And Councillor Peoples has reinforced this. It's Jerry's award and nomination and recipient. It's some people like that last year that, and I think we're getting very good at identifying them, but we need to get good at doing them now, not after January, because it slows our process up. There's unsung heroes right through our communities that timekeep at radios or flip burgers or sell tickets or clean the toilets after everyone's gone home. Put them up in lights, because they're the oil and the grease that make the wheels turn of our functions and communities, and that's one of the best platforms I know of to honour them and to really allow them to shine. And some of them are that humble they get embarrassed by it, but deep down they're very, very, very proud of the recognition that the community bestows upon them. And the new format means they're actually being recognised against the whole council area, not just unique to their own little community. So it's a really meaningful presentation.
Mayor, Paul and I attended the ACDA meeting last week in Parramatta, and we spoke to this, and I think we created a bit of interest from some of the members there.
Right. 411. I have somebody move that we receive the responses of questions on notice, please, and then we'll proceed to providing more questions on notice. Councillor Gleeson, seconded. Councillor Rogers. Those in favour? 6-0. Right, I'll kick off questions on notice. Can I have, it's been reported anecdotally to me that their craft shop in Alpha has encountered some difficulty with the selling of homemade products by way of interaction with a council staff member in that respect. Can we please investigate what that problem might be, who it may have, and sorry, don't have any interest in who it was, whether there's a satisfactory resolution that can be arrived at, because it is reportedly causing significant concern within the members of the craft community. And Alpha have used that outlet for preserves and relishes and lemon butters and so forth. Not attesting to the, yeah. I'm not attesting to the right or the wrong, I'm not taking sides, I've very, very limited opinion on or knowledge of what happens. I am aware that there's some, I won't say discontent, some alarm about the most recent interaction that was held with them by a council staff member in that respect. I'm not sure who it was, I'm not dodging who it was, I don't know who it was just someone from council. More questions? I'll start with the Deputy Mayor. Councillor Flood. Councillor Arthur.
No, Mr Mayor.
Good. Councillor Gleeson.
Mr Mayor, you might be able to answer me immediately. I was just asked a question not very long ago. Can the council ask or petition the airline regulators to have more flights in and out of Barcaldine? And is there any way that we can, as a council,
Okay.
through Rapid or something?
I can answer this directly. So the regulated route contract is due to be announced. It's imminent. Could be any day. Could be. May have even been today. Councillor Martin, Mayor Martin, and I have made a joint request to meet with the Director General of the Department of Transport and Main Road around this exact issue. At least an increase to our pre-COVID flights, which was 3 direct flights a week. We're currently back to 2. The regulated route contract that's being renewed restores our pre-COVID flight access, which is 3. We have been precluded from meeting with the DG and discussing this matter because he is the final assessor of those contracts, so there'd be a conflict of interest if he met with us prior. What he did indicate there with this, I'm not paraphrasing. Due to the current procurement process, it is not appropriate that I meet at the present time, so this is the DG. Following the procurement process and implementation of new operators' contracts, I would be happy to have a meeting. I can advise that the procurement process requires provision of minimum service levels starting 1 January 22, which is very imminently, which in this case will include the pre-COVID service levels with 3 stops for Blackpool and Barcaldine. I also note that the new contracts will provide for trials and adjustments to service levels where warranted. I look forward to discussing further opportunities with you in November, which is when Martin and I will be in Brisbane jointly to meet with him in this regard. We read that as there's the scope to increase, and there's certainly a number of representations made by other local governments as well around prior to the regulated route tender process being opened about providers making more flights available, bigger planes, more flights more often, or a combination of both. We expect, as I say, that contract to be announced, the winner to be awarded very shortly. It's certainly on our radar, but at least returning to the pre-COVID is a fair minimum starting point. That gets us from the 2 that we currently experience back to 3. And then we're looking to ramp scope up as demand warrants. So we can see whether it's in fit times or a certain flight be a bigger plane once a week because that's the predominant travel day, or we get an extra day. Working that through on a demand basis would be probably our. But that's where we're at from a lobbying point of view. Blackpool, Canberra and Barcaldine both share a very similar view on what's required, so we've agreed to combine our verbal lobbying efforts in that respect.
Very good. Thank you.
So did you give a date? Did you give a date?
The new tender takes effect from the 1st of January, yes.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, that's why it's imminently announced, like it should have been announced. The tender evaluation process has been delayed. Like it was originally indicated that this occurred back several months ago. It is what it is. It's been announced imminently. So question asked and answered there, I guess. We've got a record of that, Debbie, thank you. Yep. You're satisfied, no need for any immediate follow-up, Councillor Gleeson?
Good, thank you. Very good.
Councillor Peters.
Mr Mayor, I've just had a local resident have a yarn to me about down in front of the Globe, a couple of oldies have taken a tumble because of the gutter stepping up there in front of the bank and the information centre, and asked could we, where those posts come down, could we put a couple of just rails off the post down onto the cement, so as they've got something to hang on to on up there. You're just looking at a bit of flat steel onto the post.
So you're talking on Box Street or onto?
No, on the highway.
Oak Street.
I always get Box and Oaks mixed up, sorry. Don't know why, because there's nothing alike in any way, either the street or the tree, onto the highway on Oak Street. Councillor, we'll put there that you're requesting information on assessing and what can be done to remedy the matter.
Very common, thanks.
Do you, Mr Mayor, are we able to address that issue immediately?
By all means, District Manager Lawrence.
That is being looked into. We have some of those rails that are similar, which are just down at the end of the globe. The tech officer has looked at that and they're going to look at installing another set. It's in resolution.
Thanks, Jen.
Very good. Once more back around the room. You were hesitant before, Councillor Plum. Have you got some
Just had a
question?
couple of lots of residents complaining about barking dogs, but I've told them what the situation was, how to source it, that's all.
Yeah,
And
I
I'm
mean,
just wondering with the local laws, was there any, we were going to partner with some other town, weren't we, with that reason?
well, the fundamental thing is it doesn't matter who we're working with in that respect. The first step before we can take any action on the complaint is for the complainants to complete a log of barking dogs. And those logs are available from our offices in all of our respective admin centres. My advice to you as councillors would be to refer those people directly to our office to receive what they need to do in that process. But also don't be shy in telling them that it is a really elongated process that they have to undertake, which they can get advice from directly, and that there is always a solution for barking dogs, and that requires banding them all together.
Just take it into their own hands. Just told them to take it into their own hands.
No more, Councillor Arthur.
No, Mr Mayor.
On that, I really wish we'd closed the meeting 30 seconds ago. Councillor Gleeson.
Thank you.
I'm good, Mr Mayor, thank you.
Meeting is closed at 3:39.